There comes a quiet moment in life, not loud, not dramatic, but deeply unsettling, when you suddenly see yourself from the outside. And what you see is not strength, not confidence, but compromise. You see the times you stayed silent when you should have spoken, the times you laughed just to fit in, the times you said yes when everything inside you was screaming no. And it hits you, you weren't being kind, you weren't being patient. You were lowering yourself, piece by piece, just to be accepted by people who never truly valued you. And this realization feels heavy because it forces you to confront a painful truth, that you traded your dignity for temporary approval. And in doing so, you slowly disconnected from who you really are. And this is exactly where Stoicism enters your life, not as philosophy, but as a wake-up call. Because the Stoics understood something most people spend their entire lives ignoring, that your self-respect is your foundation. And the moment you compromise it, everything else begins to collapse. Marcus Aurelius, a man with absolute power, still reminded himself daily not to be controlled by others' opinions, not to act beneath his values, not to lose himself in the noise of people's judgments. Because he knew something powerful, that the world will constantly test you. It will tempt you to lower your standards, to seek validation, to chase approval. But a man who understands his worth does not bend for attention. He stands firm in silence, and that is what you are about to learn. Not how to impress people, not how to win approval, but how to build a mindset so strong that you never again feel the need to shrink yourself for anyone. Because once you master this, everything changes. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, people will feel it. Not because you try to prove it, but because you no longer need to. And this is where your transformation begins, not by becoming someone new, but by refusing to be someone less. Lesson 1, most people will never admit it, but their entire life is controlled by one invisible force. The need for approval. They choose their words carefully, not to express truth, but to avoid judgment. They adjust their behavior not to reflect who they are, but to fit into what others expect. They seek validation in likes, attention, compliments, and when they don't get it, they feel small, uncertain, and insecure. And this is where they lose their power, because the moment your confidence depends on others, you are no longer in control of your life. You are being controlled. And this is exactly what Stoicism warns against. Epictetus said it clearly. If you want to improve, you must be willing to be seen as foolish. Because growth requires you to step outside the comfort of approval. It requires you to risk being misunderstood, judged, even rejected. And most people are too afraid to do that. So they stay trapped in a cycle of pleasing others. But here's the truth that changes everything. The people who constantly seek approval are rarely respected. Because respect does not come from trying to be liked. It comes from standing firm in who you are. Think about the people you admire. They are not the ones chasing attention. They are the ones who move with quiet confidence, who do not explain themselves unnecessarily, who do not bend their values just to be accepted. And that's because they understand something deeper. That approval is temporary, but self-respect is permanent. And when you choose self-respect, something powerful happens. You stop tolerating behavior that disrespects you. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop chasing people who give you mixed signals. You start valuing your time, your energy, your presence, and suddenly, you become different, not louder, not arrogant, but grounded, calm, unshaken. And this is what makes you dangerous, because you are no longer predictable, you are no longer easily manipulated, you are no longer controlled by the fear of rejection. You become someone who can walk away, someone who can say no, someone who can stand alone without feeling incomplete. And this level of independence is rare, because most people would rather be accepted than be authentic. But Stoicism teaches you the opposite. It teaches you that authenticity is your power, and approval is just a distraction. So the next time you feel the urge to seek validation, remind yourself, you are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to live in alignment with who you truly are. And the moment you stop begging for approval, you don't lose people, you lose the wrong ones. Lesson 2, there is a moment in life when you realize that not every situation deserves your voice. Not every person deserves your explanation, and not every conflict deserves your energy. But most people never reach this moment because they are trapped in the need to be understood. They feel the urge to explain themselves, to justify their actions, to make others see their perspective. And when they don't, they feel frustrated, disrespected, and unheard. But here's the truth that Stoicism teaches. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You only need to be aligned with yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself constantly about the nature of people, reminding himself that he would encounter ignorance, selfishness, and disrespect. And yet, he never wasted his energy trying to fix people who were committed to misunderstanding him, because he understood something powerful, that your energy is limited, and where you invest it determines your peace. And this is where most people fail. They invest their energy in arguments that don't matter, in people who don't listen, in situations that only drain them. And in doing so, they lower themselves, they react emotionally. They try to prove their worth, they engage in unnecessary battles, and at the end of it, they feel exhausted, not because the situation was difficult, but because they chose to stay in it. And this is where your power lies, not in winning arguments, but in choosing which battles are worth your time. Walking away is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the ability to say, "This does not deserve my energy. This does not align with who I am. This is not worth my peace." And when you master this, something shifts inside you. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop chasing closure. You stop trying to be heard by people who are not listening. And instead, you move differently. You move with intention, with calmness, with control. You begin to understand that silence is not emptiness. It is strength. It is the ability to hold your power without feeling the need to prove it. And this is what makes people uncomfortable, because they expect reactions, they expect explanations, they expect engagement. But when you give them none, when you simply walk away, you break the pattern. You show them that you are not easily pulled into their chaos. And this is where respect is built, not through words, but through actions, through boundaries, through the quiet confidence of knowing your worth. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause, ask yourself, is this person truly trying to understand me? Or am I trying to convince someone who has already decided not to? And if the answer is the second, then you already know what to do. Walk away, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity, because your peace is more valuable than their opinion. Lesson 3, there is no faster way to lose your power than to lose control of your emotions, because the moment someone can trigger you, they can control you. And most people live their entire lives in this state without realizing it. They react instantly. They speak without thinking, they act on impulse, and later they regret it. But by then, the damage is already done, and this is exactly what Stoicism trains you to overcome. The Stoics believed that emotions themselves are not the problem, but your reaction to them is. Anger is natural, frustration is natural, even jealousy is natural. But acting on these emotions without control is what leads to weakness. And this is where most people lower themselves in moments of emotion. They say things they don't mean. They make decisions they later regret. They allow others to pull them into negativity. And in doing so, they lose their composure, their dignity, their strength. But imagine a different version of yourself. A version that feels emotions but does not become them. A version that experiences anger but chooses silence. That feels frustration but responds with clarity. That faces disrespect but remains unshaken. This is what Stoic discipline looks like. It is not suppression. It is mastery. It is the ability to pause between stimulus and response, to observe your emotions without being controlled by them. And this pause is where your power lies, because in that moment you have a choice. You can react and give away your control, or you can respond and maintain your strength. And the difference between these two is everything. Because people who react are predictable, they are easy to manipulate, easy to provoke, easy to control. But people who respond with awareness are different. They are calm, calculated, grounded. They do not give others the satisfaction of seeing them lose control. And this is what makes them powerful, because they operate on a level that most people cannot reach. A level of discipline, awareness, and emotional intelligence. And this is not something you are born with. It is something you train daily through awareness, through reflection, through practice. And the more you do this, the stronger you become, until one day you realize something incredible. That the things that once triggered you no longer have power over you. The words that once hurt you no longer affect you. The situations that once overwhelmed you no longer shake you. And in that moment, you understand what true strength is. Not dominance over others, but mastery over yourself. Lesson 4, one of the harshest truths you will ever face is this. People treat you based on what you allow, not what you deserve. And most people struggle with this because they confuse tolerance with kindness. They think staying silent is being patient. They think accepting bad behavior is being understanding. They think giving endless chances is being a good person. But in reality, they are teaching others that it is okay to disrespect them. And this is where they lose their power, because every time you tolerate something that goes against your values, you send a message, not through words, but through actions, that this behavior is acceptable, and people notice this. Consciously or unconsciously, they see what you allow, they see what you ignore, they see what you tolerate, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. And this is why some people constantly find themselves in situations where they feel disrespected, not because they are weak, but because they have not set clear boundaries. And Stoicism teaches you something different. It teaches you that your time, your energy, your presence are valuable, and not everyone deserves access to them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be tolerant with others but strict with himself. And this balance is important, because it means you can understand people without allowing them to walk over you. You can be kind without being weak. You can be patient without being passive. And this is where true strength lies, in knowing when to give and when to withdraw, in knowing when to engage and when to step back. And this requires awareness, because not all disrespect is obvious. Sometimes it is subtle. It comes in the form of being ignored, being undervalued, being taken for granted. And if you are not careful, you can normalize it. You can convince yourself that it is not a big deal, that you are overthinking, that you should just let it go. But every time you do this, you lower your standards, you lower your expectations, you lower yourself. And over time, this becomes your reality, and breaking this pattern requires courage. It requires you to set boundaries, to say no, to walk away, to choose yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. And this is not easy, because it will challenge your habits, your beliefs, your fears. But it is necessary, because the moment you start respecting yourself, others will either adjust or they will leave, and both outcomes are beneficial, because you are no longer surrounded by people who do not value you. You are no longer in environments that drain you. You are no longer compromising your dignity for temporary comfort. And this is where your life begins to change, not because the world becomes different, but because you do. Lesson 5, there is a level of confidence that most people never reach, not because it is impossible, but because it requires something they are not willing to let go of: the need to chase, to force, to prove. And this level of confidence is built on one thing: self-worth, not the kind that comes from external success, not the kind that depends on validation, but the kind that comes from within, from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you will never compromise. And when you reach this level, something shifts. You stop chasing people who are not interested. You stop forcing connections that feel one-sided. You stop explaining yourself to those who do not care to understand. And this is not arrogance. It is clarity. It is the understanding that your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see it. And this is where most people struggle. They tie their worth to how others treat them. If they are appreciated, they feel valuable. If they are ignored, they feel unworthy. And this creates a cycle of dependence, where their confidence rises and falls based on external factors. But Stoicism breaks this cycle. It teaches you that your worth is internal. It is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It is something you define. And when you truly understand this, you become independent, not isolated but self-sufficient. You enjoy connections, but you do not rely on them for validation. You appreciate people, but you do not chase them. You give your time and energy, but only to those who reciprocate. And this creates a different kind of life. A life where you are not constantly seeking approval, not constantly proving yourself, not constantly adjusting to fit into others' expectations, but a life where you are aligned with who you are. And this alignment brings peace, confidence, and clarity. And it shows in everything you do, in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you make decisions. And people notice this, they feel it, not because you try to show it, but because it is natural, it is authentic. And this is what makes it powerful, because it cannot be faked. It cannot be forced. It can only be built through self-awareness, through discipline, through the willingness to stand alone if necessary. And once you reach this point, you realize something that changes everything, that you were never meant to chase. You were meant to attract, not by trying harder, but by becoming stronger. And now you see it clearly, maybe for the first time, maybe in a way you can no longer ignore, that every time you lowered yourself for someone else, you were not gaining anything. You were losing something far more valuable: your dignity, your self-respect, your inner peace. And the truth is, no relationship, no attention, no validation is ever worth that price. Because the moment you abandon yourself, nothing you gain will ever feel enough. And this is where your transformation begins. Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now, in this very moment, where you make a quiet decision that you will no longer chase people who do not choose you. You will no longer explain yourself to those who refuse to understand you. You will no longer tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. Because being alone with dignity is far more powerful than being surrounded with disrespect. And as you move forward, you will notice something different. You will feel it in the way you think, in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself. A calm strength, a silent confidence, a presence that does not need validation. And people will notice it too, not because you try to show it, but because it becomes who you are, and some will respect you for it. Some will distance themselves from you, but both are necessary, because you are no longer living to be accepted. You are living to be aligned. And that is a different level of power, a level most people never reach, because they are too afraid to stand alone. But you are not that person anymore. You are building something stronger, something unshakable, something rooted in self-respect and discipline. And as you continue on this path, remember this: the world will test you again. It will tempt you to go back to old habits, to seek approval, to tolerate less than you deserve. But now you know better. Now you see clearly. Now you understand that your value is not something to negotiate. It is something to protect. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt something shift inside you, then don't let it stop here. Take this mindset into your life, apply it, live it, embody it. And if you are ready to keep growing, to keep strengthening your mind, then make sure you subscribe to Stoic Spark and press the bell icon.